Hello and welcome to this first look exploring session, something of perhaps a slightly squeezed in flyby session looking at Sejanus, his fall by Ben Jonson, written and performed sometime in around 1603. Precisely when in 1603 is a little fiddly, but yeah, it's there or thereabouts. And as we sort of cross that threshold now, more determinantly stepping more into the Jacobean rather than the Elizabethan, with our text mostly from this point onwards. So, reading through the first two acts, today we have reading Natta, Sejanus, and Sosia is...
Steve Longstaffe in the northwest of England.
Reading Cordus, Eudemus, and Junior. We're not sure which Junior, but their Junior is...
Aliki, Chapple, actor and translator, currently in Athens.
Reading Arruntius, Livia, and Agrippina is...
Lois Potter in London.
Reading Sabinus and Posthumus is...
Hi, I'm American. I cannot spell in any of these languages, English or Latin.
And reading Haterius, Satrius, and Nero is...
It's Alan Insock.
And finally, reading Latiaris, or Lataria, I can't pronounce that one. Tiberius, I can. And Drusus is...
Sarah Blake, finishing off a packet of crisps in Germany.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I will be reading Sileus, unless we have a late incoming arrival as we go into the play. So we're going to read a reasonable chunkette before we get around to any discussion, but we will be doing some discussion. Act 1, Scene 1. We're going for maximalist scene exchanges. Different editions, broadly speaking, go for just when your primary action ends. This scene labeling system is much more primary, big entrances and exits, so sometimes they are middle of a scene, but it does vary from edition to edition. Act 1, Scene 1, enter Sabinus and Sileus, followed by Latiaris.
Hail, Caius Sileus.
Titius Sabinus, hail! You're rarely met in court.
Therefore well met.
'Tis true, indeed, this place is not our sphere.
No, Sileus, we're no good engineers. We want their fine arts, and their thriving use should make us graced, or favoured of the times. We have no shift of faces, no cleft tongues, no soft and glutinous bodies that can stick like snails on painted walls, or on our breasts creep up to fall from that proud height to which we did by slavery, not by service, climb. We are no guilty men, and then no great. We have no place in court, office in state, that we can say we owe unto our crimes. We burn with no black secrets, which can make us dear to the pale authors, or lift feared of their still waiting jealousies to raise ourselves a fortune by subverting theirs. We stand not in the lines that do advance to that so courted point.
Enter Satrius and Natta at a distance. Oh, but yonder lean a pair that do.
Good cousin Latiaris.
Satrius Secundus and Pinarius Natta, the great Sejanus clients. There be two, no more than honest counsels, whose close breasts, were they ripped up to light, it would be found a poor and idle sin, to which their trunks had not been made fit organs. These can lie, flatter and swear, forswear, deprave, inform, smile and betray, make guilty men, then beg the forfeit lives to get their livings, cut men's throats with whispering, sell to gaping suitors the empty smoke that flies about the palace, laugh when their patron laughs, sweat when he sweats, be hot and cold with him, change every mood, habit and garb as often as he varies, observe him as his watch observes his clock, and true as turquoise in the dear Lord's ring, look well or ill with him, ready to praise his lordship if he spit or but piss fair, have an indifferent stool or break wind well, nothing can scape their catch.
Alas, these things deserve no note, compared with other vile and filthier flatteries that corrupt the times. When not alone our gentry's chief are fain to make their safety from such sordid acts, but all our consuls and no little part of such have been praetors, yea, the most of senators that else use not their voices, start up in public senate in their strive, who shall propound most abject things and base. So much as oft Tiberius hath been heard, leaving the courts to cry, "O race of men prepared for servitude," which showed that he, who least the public liberty could like, has loathly brooked their flat servility.
Well, all is worthy of us, were it more, who with our riots, pride, and civil hate, have so provoked the justice of the gods, we that within these 80 years were born free equal lords of the triumphed world, and knew no masters, but affections, to which betraying first our liberties, we since became the slaves to one man's lusts, and now to many. Every ministering spy that will accuse and swear is lord of you, of me, of all our fortunes and our lives. Our looks are called to question, and our words, how innocent soever, are made crimes. We shall not shortly dare to tell our dreams, or think, but 'twill be reason. That should be your line. Sab is you. Eric, I apologise. Bottom of the speech. Last 2.5 lines, not properly set.
The tyrant's arts are to give flatterers grace, accusers power, that those may seem to kill whom they devour.
Enter Cordus and Arruntius.
Now, good Cremutius Cordus.
Hail to your lordship.
Who's that salutes your cousin?
One Cordus, a gentleman of Rome, one that has read annals of late, they say, and very well.
Annals? Of what times?
I think of Pompey's and Caius Caesar's, and so down to these.
How stands he affected to the present state? Is he Drusian or Germanic, or ours, or neutral?
I know him not so far.
Those times are somewhat queasy to be touched. Have you seen or heard part of his work?
Not I. He means they shall be public shortly.
Oh, Cordus, do you call him?
Aye.
And exeunt Natta and Satrius.
But these our times are not the same, Arruntius.
Times? The men are not the same. 'Tis we are base, poor and degenerate from the exalted strain of our great fathers. Where is now the soul of godlike Cato, he that durst be good when Caesar durst be evil, and had power as not to live his slave, to die his master? Or where's the constant Brutus, that being proof against all charm of benefits, did strike so brave a blow into the monster's heart that sought unkindly to captive his country? Oh, they are fled the light. Those mighty spirits lie raked up with their ashes in their urns, and not a spark of their eternal fire glows in a present bosom. All's but blaze, flashes, and smoke, wherewith we labor so. There's nothing Roman in us, nothing good, gallant, or great. 'Tis true that Cordus says, brave Cassius was the last of all that race.
Meanwhile, Drusus passes over the stage, attended by Haterius, etc.
Stand by, Lord Drusus.
The Emperor's son, give place.
I like the prince well.
A riotous youth. There's little hope of him.
That fault his age will, as it grows, correct. He thinks he bears himself each day more nobler than the other, and wins no less on men's affections than doth his father lose. Believe me, I love him, and chiefly for opposing to Sejanus.
And I for gracing his young kinsman so, the sons of Prince Germanicus. It shows gallant clearness in him, a straight mind that envies not in them their father's name.
His name was, while he lived, above all envy, and being dead without it. Oh, that man! If there were seeds of old virtue left, they lived in him.
Yeah, he had the fruits, Arruntius, more than the seeds. Sabinus and myself had means to know him within, and can report him. We were his followers, he would call us friends. He was a man most like to virtue, in all and every action, nearer to the gods than man. In nature, of a body as fair as was his mind, and no less reverend in face than fame. He could so use his state, tempering his greatness with his gravity, as it avoided all self-love in him, and spite in others. What his funerals lacked, in images and pomp, they had supplied with honourable sorrow, soldiers' sadness, a kind of silent mourning, such as men who know no tears, but from their captives use to show it in so great losses.
I thought once, considering their forms, age, manner of deaths, the nearness of the places where they fell, to have paralleled him with great Alexander, for both were of best feature, of high race, yeared but to 30, and in foreign lands, by their own people alike made away. Sab, I know not for his death how you might rest it. Oh, sorry, that is, I beg your pardon.
That's Sabinus.
Yeah, you're right, alike made away.
I know not for his death how you might rest it, but for his life it did as much disdain comparison with that voluptuous, rash, giddy, and drunken Macedons as mine who doth with my bondsmen's. All the good in him, his valour and his fortune, he made his, but he had other touches of late Romans that more did speak him. Pompey's dignity, the innocence of Cato, Caesar's spirit, wise Brutus's temperance, and every virtue which parted unto others gave him name and flowed mixed in him. He was the soul of goodness, and all our praises of him are like streams drawn from a spring that still rise full and leave the part remaining greatest.
I am sure he was too great for us, and that they knew who did remove him hence.
When men grow fast honoured and loved, there is a trick in state, which jealous princes never fail to use, how to decline that growth with fair pretext and honourable colours of employment, either by embassy, the war, or such, to shift them forth into another air, where they may purge and lessen. So was he, and had his seconds there, sent by Tiberius and his more subtle dam, to discontent him, to breed and cherish mutinies, detract his greatest actions, give audacious check to his commands, and work to put him out in open act of treason. All which snares, when his wise cares prevented, a fine poison was thought on to mature their practices.
Enter Sejanus talking to Terentius, followed by Satrius, Natta, etc.
Here comes Sejanus.
Now observe the stoops, the bendings, and the falls.
Most creeping base.
I know them well. No more. Say you?
What? There is a gentleman of Rome would buy.
How call you him you talked with?
Please your lordship, 'tis Eudemus, the physician to Livia, Drusus' wife.
On with your suit. Would buy, you said?
Tribune's place, my lord.
What will he give?
50 sestertii.
Livia's physician, say you, is that fellow?
It is, my lord. Your lordship's answer?
To what?
The place, my lord. 'Tis for a gentleman your lordship will well like of when you see him, and one that you may make yours by the grant.
Well, let him bring his money and his name.
Thank your lordship. You shall, my lord.
Come hither. Know you this same Eudemus? Is he learned?
Reputed, sir, my lord, and of deep practice.
Bring him in to me, in the gallery. Take you cause to leave us there together. I would confer with him about grief. On.
Exeunt Sejanus, Satrius, Arruntius, etc.
So yet another. Yet, oh, desperate state of grovelling honour. Seest thou this, O sun, and do we see thee after? Methinks day should lose his light, when men do lose their shames, and for the empty circumstance of life betray their cause of living.
Nothing so. Sejanus can repair if Jove should ruin. He is now the court god, and well applied, with sacrifice of knees, of crooks and cringes. He will do more than all the house of heaven can for 1,000 hecatombs. 'Tis he makes us our day or night. Hell and Elysium are in his look. We talk of Radamanth, furies and firebrands, but it is his frown that is all these, where on the adverse part his smile is more than e'er yet poets feigned, of bliss and shades nectar.
A serving boy. I knew him at Caius Trencher, when for hire he prostituted his abused body to that great gourmand, fat Apicius, and was the noted pathic of the time.
And now the second face of the whole world, the partner of the empire, hath his image reared with equal with Tiberius, born in ensigns, commands, disposes every dignity, centurions, tribunes, heads of provinces, praetors, and consuls, all that heretofore Rome's general suffrage gave is now his sale. The gain, or rather spoil, of all the earth, won, and his house receives.
He hath of late made him a strength too strangely by reducing all the Praetorian bands into one camp, which he commands, pretending that the soldiers, by living loose and scattered, felt a riot, and that if any sudden enterprise should be attempted, their united strength would be far more than severed, and their life more strict, if from the city more removed.
Where now he builds what kind of forts he please, is heard to court the soldier by his name, feasts the chiefest men of action, whose wants, not loves, compel them to be his. And though he ne'er were liberal by kind, yet to his own dark ends he's most profuse. Lavish and letting fly, he cares not what is to his ambition.
Yet hath he ambition? Is there that step in state can make him higher, or more, or anything he is, but less?
Nothing but emperor.
The name Tiberius I hope will keep, howe'er he hath foregone the dignity and power.
Sure, while he lives.
And dead it comes to Drusus, should he fail, to the brave issue of Germanicus, and they are 3. Too many, for him to have a plot upon.
I do not know the heart of his designs, but sure their face looks farther than the present.
By the gods, if I could guess he had but such a thought, my sword should cleave him down from head to heart, but I would find it out, and with my hand I'd hurl his panting brain about the air in mites as small as atomy, to undo the knotted bed.
You are observed, Arruntius.
Death, I dare tell him so, and all his spies. You, sir, I would, ye look, and you.
We're bare.
Yes, and at that moment of forbearance, we have an artificial scene break in the script that we're looking at. There's a lot of stuff coming. I'm really enjoying it, but there is a great sense of there's a lot of politicking going on, and you're only just taking in waves and elements of it, and it's one of those disadvantages of a cold read where I'm not sure how ironic I'm being. Sometimes I'm being deadly serious. Sometimes I'm being a bit sarky. Sometimes you're not quite sure because these people are talking to people, and sometimes they're talking publicly, and sometimes they're talking to every person they're talking to. They may be showing a slightly different face, and it's really interesting, and it moves at a fair old lick. Actually, I mean, always the fear with Ben Jonson is that there's a lot of words, and sure there are a lot of words, but they are bouncing along quite nicely. And okay, the big takeaway of this section that we've looked at is, there's this guy called Sejanus. Bit dodge. Not one of us, is he? Not one of the proper sort. He's aiming high, isn't he? Have you noticed what he's doing with all those soldiers? He's sort of doing this interesting sort of he's got this sort of mass of them nearby, isn't it? That's a bit worrying. What's he planning? So, but then there's all these sort of little other bits going in there, and it's one of those questions: would an audience completely back away from so much information coming at them, or because there's the visual aspect as well, because there are people walking around the stage, so they're pointing at people and saying, "Oh, they're like this." So there's all sorts of things. So thoughts from the room about this. This is an opening gambit. I'll go to Lois, then Eric.
Yeah, I think Jonson's trying to create the sense of a rather scary world in which somebody's nearly always spying on you. I mean, they're very conscious of that when these two guys come in, and then and Arruntius, who's the only one that lets fly at everything, addresses them directly, and everybody else is trying to say the right thing to them, whatever they may think about it with each other.
Eric.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, usually we don't trust the punctuation, but I'm like, I don't know if I should be trusting it, because some sentences just go on for an entire speech, and it's hard to follow sometimes, but then you get to the end of the speech and it makes sense. Like some of those are a bit like reverse ways of saying things. Like, I do not know the heart of his designs, but sure, they're farther than the present is kind of, yeah, you can get what that means. But then I think Sabinus' opening speech was kind of the first long speech, I mean, was kind of, we are not this, we are not that, so what are we? It's just like, get to the point.
Yeah, I'm not saying there aren't errors. We've already stumbled across a few, but on the whole, I think it is following a relatively Johnsonian punctuation scheme, and it is knotty stuff. It is doing interesting things with the verse that it does require some navigation, but it's very enjoyable to say. I'm really enjoying saying it. I don't know if anyone's enjoying listening to it, but I'm enjoying saying it. Stephen.
Yeah, I like the versification too. There's not a word wasted, is there? But I really liked the smartness of the hook with Sejanus, because we've had all this prep from the court about his ambition, and he's doing, kind of bare-chested thing with soldiers in the woods and all that very, very masculine stuff. And he's wanting to talk to the doctor of a woman. And I think that's really quite intriguing, and kind of, that's the kind of, it's a lovely surprising hook. He's not going, are you going to poison this guy? And, I want to inspect the troops. He wants to talk to a doctor. So, there's potentially something really interesting going on that none of these people who've been setting our scene actually know about at all. And I think that's a really smart hook, I think.
Lots of nice world building going on here. I am intrigued. I'm drawn in. I am not alienated by too many random people talking yet. Eric.
Yeah, and it's kind of well, to add to Stephen's point, aside from the fact that it's the woman's doctor, it's someone else's wife's doctor. So it's just like, okay, what is he up to? But yeah. I don't know, that's just interesting. And it's a bit House of Cards, I think, like where you've got this this buzz of political activity, but you don't quite know what it is yet. Well, I mean, unless you know Roman history, I guess.
I was thinking it's more West Wing. There's a lot of walking and talking going on here. A lot of walk and talk. Look across the room, other people there. Okay, let's continue, because they say the scene effectively just one bit flows into another, it flows into another. So we got this labelled as Act 1, Scene 2, but it's entirely artificial. Enter Satrius and Eudemus.
Here will instant be. Let's walk a turn. You're in a muse, Eudemus.
Not I, sir. I wonder he should mark me out so. Well, Jove and Apollo form it for the best.
Your fortune's made unto you now, Eudemus. If you can but lay hold upon the means, do but observe his humour and believe it. He is the noblest Roman where he takes.
Enter Sejanus.
Here comes his lordship.
Now, good Satrius.
This is the gentleman, my lord.
Who's this? Give me your hand. We must be more acquainted. Reports, sir, have spoke out your art and learning, and I am glad I have so needful cause, however in itself painful and hard, to make me known to so great virtue. Look, who is that, Satrius?
Yes, exit, Satrius.
I have a grief, sir, that will desire your help. Your name's Eudemus.
Yes.
Sir?
It is, my lord.
I hear you are physician to Livia, the princess.
I minister unto her, my good lord.
You minister to a royal lady, then?
She is, my lord, and fair.
That's understood of all her sex, who are or would be so. And those that would be, physic soon can make them. Those that are, their beauties fear no colours.
Your lordship is conceited.
Sir, you know it. Can, if need be, read a learned lecture on this and other secrets. Pray you tell me, what more of ladies, besides Livia, have you your patient?
Many, my good lord. The great Augusta, Orgolania, Mutilia Prisca, and Plancina, diverse.
And all these tell you the particulars of every several grief? How first it grew and then increased, what action caused that, what passion that, and answer to each point that you will put them.
Else, my lord, we know not how to prescribe the remedies.
Go to. You're a subtle nation, you physicians, grown the only cabinets in court to ladies' privacies. Faith, which of these is the most pleasant lady in her physic? Come, you are modest now.
'Tis fit, my lord.
So I do not ask you of their urines. Who smells most violet, whose siege is best, who makes hardest faces on her stool, which lady sleeps with her own face a night, which puts her teeth off with her clothes in court, which her hair, which her complexion, which box she puts it. These were questions that might perhaps have put your gravity to some defence of blush. But I enquired, which was the wittiest, merriest, wantonest? Harmless interrogatories, but conceits. And methinks Augusta should be most perverse and froward in her fit.
She is so, my lord.
I knew it. And Mutilia, the most jocund?
'Tis very true, my lord.
Why would you now conceal this from me? Come, what is Livia? You know, she's quick and quaintly spirited, and hath strange thoughts when she is at leisure. She tells them all to you.
My noblest lord, he breathes not in the empire or on earth, whom I would be ambitious to serve in any act that may preserve mine honor before your lordship.
Sir, you can lose no honor by trusting, or to me. The coarsest act done to my service I can so requite as all the world should style it honourable. Your idle, virtuous definitions keep honour poor, and are as scorned as vain. Those deeds breathe honour that do suck in gain.
But good my lord, if I should thus betray the counsels of my patient, and the ladies of her high place and worth, what might your lordship, who presently are to trust me with your own, judge of my faith?
Only the best, I swear. Say now that I should utter you my grief, and with it the true cause, that it were love to Livia. You should tell her this, should she suspect your faith. I would you could tell me as much from her. See if my brain could be turned jealous.
Happily, my lord, I could, in time, tell you as much and more, so I might safely promise, but the first to her from you.
Safely, my Eudemus, when I dare call thee so, as I have put the secret into thee.
My lord.
Protest not. Thy looks are thous to me. Use only speed, and but affect her with Sejanus' love. Thou art a man made to make consuls. Go.
My lord, I'll promise you a private meeting this day together.
Canst thou?
Yes.
The place?
My gardens, whither I shall fetch your lordship.
Let me adore my Asclepius. Why, this indeed is physic. It outspeaks the knowledge of cheap drugs. Any use can be made out of it. More comforting than all your opiates, juleps, apozems, magistral syrups. Yeah, be gone, my friend. Not barely styled, but created so. Expect things greater than thy largest hopes to overtake thee. Fortune shall be taught to know how ill she hath deserved thus long to come behind thy wishes. Go. Speed.
Exit Eudemus.
Ambition makes more trusty slaves than need. These fellows, by the favour of their art, have still the means to tempt, oft times, power. If Livia will be now corrupted, and thou hast the way, Sejanus, to work out his secrets, who thou knowest endures thee not, her husband, Drusus, to work against them. Prosperate Pallas, that thou bettest wit, Venus hath the smallest share in it.
I'll just pause there. That was I put in the chat. We've gone for this massive scene, people flowing in and out, and suddenly everything just goes shoof, and it's these two people. And I think Eudemus, you keyed in very quickly, straight away, as to what the relationship between the two of you were, and the cat and mouse game that's going on with someone who's clearly not got a chance of keeping stum. She's just trying to be really careful not to say anything in front of this very powerful man, and you are slowly, it's all wheedled out, and you are turned quite spectacularly. It's a really clever scene.
Stephen was very scary. I couldn't say no to him.
Yeah, and it's you know, we have this slight difference between public face and private face here as well. You know, he's you know, the Sejanus didn't say a lot in public earlier, but you know, this is a very dangerous man. And yeah, but frankly, they're all a bunch of snakes, probably. But, this is one who wields some power, whereas a lot of the other people we've met so far are going, do they really have any power? They don't really have any power, do they? This guy has got a private army sitting down the road. He's got some power. He's got some heft. Any other thoughts from this little exchange, apart from it was quite good? Alan.
I must admit, whenever you get a posh character who refers to honour, I always check my pockets.
Yeah, I mean, actually, what is Sejanus' class within the strata of things? He's not from a desperately noble family, is he? He's more your upstart. I mean, he's a in that sense. I mean, I think we can say a lot of these of people in this are of, you know, higher status than most other people. It's more status rather than necessarily breeding, as it were. It ain't what it used to be. But then that's what that first section was all about, isn't it? Rome ain't what it used to be. The good old days. It's all a bit corrupt now, isn't it? Oh, do you remember the good old days when people stabbed each other, you know, in a noble way? Oh, happy days. You don't get noble stabbing anymore. No. Nobody sprinkles nobility over their knives. Just get a Commodore Garden. Someone stop me. Lois.
Yeah. Well, I think if we can believe what Arruntius says, Sejanus partly rose through sex, didn't he? I mean, he was the noted Pathic of the time, and he was sort of he was certainly lower class than these people. That's one of the many reasons they despise him.
Okay, so the world is going to open out again to someone who I think is fairly safe to say is of fairly high status. Enter Tiberius, and Drusus attended.
We do not endure these flatteries. Let him stand. Our empire, ensigns, axes, rods, and state take not away our human nature from us. Look up on us and fall before the gods.
How like a god speaks Caesar.
Oh, there, observe. He can endure that second. That's no flattery. What is it, proud slime, will not believe of his own worth, to hear it equal praise thus with the gods?
I think that's Aliki, is Cordus. We may have some clashes, by the way, coming up.
I'm sorry, I'm confused. Rarely dissembled.
No, he did not hear it, sir.
Further up.
No. Sorry. He did not hear it, sir.
He did not. Tut, he must not, we think meanly. 'Tis your most courtly known confederacy to have your private parasite redeem what he in public subtlety will lose to making him a name.
Right, mighty lord.
Gives Tiberius letters.
Must make up our ears against these assaults of charming tongues. We pray you, use no more these contumelies to us. Style not us, or lord, or mighty, who profess ourself the servant of the Senate, and are proud to enjoy them our good, just, and favouring lords.
Rarely dissembled.
Prince-like to the life.
What power that may command so much descends, their bondage whom it stoops to it intends.
Whence are these letters?
From the Senate.
So,
Haterius gives him letters.
whence these? From thence too. Are they sitting now? They stay thy answer, Caesar.
If this man had but a mind allied unto his words, how blessed a fate were it to us in Rome! We could not think that state for which to change, although the aim were our old liberty. The ghosts of those that fell for that would grieve, their bodies lived not now again to serve. Men are deceived who think there can be thrall beneath a virtuous prince. Wished liberty ne'er lovelier looks than under such a crown. But when his grace is merely but lip good, and that no longer than he airs himself abroad in public, there to seem to shun the strokes and stripes of flatterers, which within are lechery unto him, and so feed his brutish sense with their afflicting sound, as dead to virtue, he permits himself to be carried like a pitcher by the ears to every act of vice. This is the case deserves our fear, and doth presage the nigh and close approach of blood and tyranny. Flattery is midwife unto princes' rage, and nothing sooner doth help forth a tyrant than that and whisperers' grace, who have the time, the place, the power to make all men offenders.
He should be told this, and be bid dissemble with fools and blind men. We that know the evil should hunt the palace rats, or give them bane. Fright hence these worse than ravens that devour the quick where they but prey upon the dead. He shall be told it.
Stay, Arruntius, we must abide our opportunity and practice what is fit, what is needful. It is not safe to enforce a sovereign's ear. Princes hear well, if they at all will hear.
Say you so? Well, in the meantime, Jove, say not, but I do call upon thee now, of all wild beasts, preserve me from a tyrant, and of all tame, a flatterer.
Ah, 'tis well prayed.
Return the lords this voice. We are their creature, and it is fit a good and honest prince, whom they, out of their bounty, have instructed with so dilate and absolute a power, should owe the office of it to their service, and good of all and every citizen. Nor shall it e'er repent us to have wished the Senate just, and favouring lords unto us, since their free loves do yield no less defence to a prince's state than his own innocence. Say then, there can be nothing in their thought shall want to please us that hath pleased them. Our suffrage rather shall prevent than stay behind their wills. 'Tis empire to obey, where such so great, so grave, so good determine. Yet, for the suit of Spain to erect a temple in honour of our mother and ourself, we must, with pardon of the Senate, not assent thereto. Their lordships may object our not denying the same late request unto the Asian cities. We desire that our defence for suffering that be known in these brief reasons, with our after purpose. Since deified, Augustus hindered not a temple to be built at Pergamum in honour of himself and sacred Rome. We, that have all his deeds and words observed ever, in place of laws, the rather followed that pleasing precedent, because with ours the Senate's reverence also there was joined. But as to have once received it may deserve the gain of pardon, so to be adored with the continued style and note of gods through all the provinces were wild ambition, and no less pride, yea, even Augustus' name would early vanish should it be profaned with such promiscuous flatteries. For our part, we here protest it, and our covetous posterity should know it. We are mortal, and can but deeds of men. 'Twere glory enough could we be truly a prince, and they shall add abounding grace unto our memory that shall report us worthy our forefathers, careful of your affairs, constant in dangers, and not afraid of any private frown for public good. These things shall be to us temples and statues, reared in your minds, the fairest and most during imagery. For those of stone or brass, if they become odious in judgment of posterity, are more condemned as dying sepulchres than ta'en for living monuments. We then make here our suit, alike to gods and men, the one until the period of our race to inspire us with a free and quiet mind, discerning both divine and human laws, the other to vouchsafe us after death an honourable mention and fair praise, to accompany our actions and our name. The rest of greatness princes may command, and therefore may neglect. Only a long, a lasting, high and happy memory they should, without being satisfied, pursue. Contempt of fame begets contempt of virtue.
That's divine.
The oracles are ceased, that only Caesar with their tongue might speak.
Let me be gone. Most felt and open this.
Say,
What, to hear more cunning and fine words, with our sound flattered ere their sense be meant?
Their choice of Antium, there to place the gift, vowed to the goddess for our mother's health, we will the Senate know we fairly like. And also of their grant to Lepidus for his repairing the Aemilian palace and restoration of those monuments. Their grace too in confining of Sejanus to the other isle, Cytherea, at the suit of his religious sister, much commends their policy, so tempered with their mercy. But for the honours which they have decreed to our Sejanus to advance his statue in Pompey's theatre, whose ruining fire his vigilance and labour kept restrained in that one loss, They have therein outgone their own great wisdoms by their skilful choice, and placing of their bounties on a man whose merit more adorns the dignity than that can him, and gives a benefit in taking greater than it can receive. Blush not, Sejanus, thou great aid of Rome, associate of our labours, our chief helper. Let us not force thy simple modesty with offering at thy praise, for more we cannot, since there's no voice can take it. No man here receive our speeches as hyperboles, for we are far from flattering our friend, lest envy know, as from the need to flatter. Nor let them ask the causes of our praise. Princes have still their grounds reared with themselves above the poor low flats of common men, and who will search the reasons of their acts must stand on equal bases. Lead away. Our loves unto the Senate.
Exeunt Tiberius, Sejanus, Natta, Haterius, etc., etc.
Caesar.
Peace.
Great Pompey's theatre was never ruined till now, that proud Sejanus hath a statue reared on his ashes.
Place the shame of soldiers above the best of generals. Crack the world and bruise the name of Roman unto dust ere we behold it.
Check your passion, Lord Drusus tarries.
Is my father mad, weary of life and rule, lords? Thus to heave an idol up with praise, make him his mate, his rival in the empire?
Oh, good prince.
Allow him statues, titles, honours, such as he himself refuseth?
Brave, brave Drusus.
The first ascents to sovereignty are hard, but, entered once, there never wants or means or ministers to help the aspirer on.
True, gallant Drusus.
We must shortly pray to modesty, that he will rest contented.
Aye, where he is, and not right emperor.
Re-enter Sejanus, Satrius, Latiaris, clients, etc.
There's your bill, and yours. Bring you your man. I have moved for you too, Latiaris.
What? Is your vast greatness grown so blindly bold that you will over us?
Then give way.
Give way, Colossus. Do you lift? Advance you? Take that.
And Drusus strikes him.
Oh, good, brave, excellent, brave prince.
Nay, come, approach.
And draws his sword.
What? Stand you off at gaze? It looks too full of death for thy cold spirits. Avoid mine eye, dull camel, or my sword shall make thy bravery fitter for a grave than for a triumph. I'll advance a statue, o' your own bulk, but shall be on the cross, where I will nail your pride at breadth and length, and crack those sinews which are yet but stretched with your swollen fortune's rage.
A noble prince.
Caster! Exeunt all but Sejanus.
He that with such wrong moved can bear it, though, through with patience and even mind, knows how to turn it back. Wrath-covered carries fate. Revenge is lost if I profess my hate. What was my practice late, I'll now pursue as my fell justice. This hath styled it new.
Dun, dun, dun. Exit Sejanus. End of Act 1. Okay, there's interesting games going on here. I mean, yes, okay, Tiberius goes on for a while. But part of the point is that Tiberius goes on for a while, and all those flatterers are standing around going, oh, bravo, oh, very good, oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Of course, there's a nice little irony, of course, when Drusus comes on and says, you know, the opposite, and all these people are saying, oh, these other people are all flatterers, and they're the ones who are going, oh, bravo, well done, well said, Drusus, and it's sort of going, are they flatterers, or do they just agree with them? Or, you know, and so there's a nice little ironies at play there, and I'm sure we could trim Tiberius' speech down a bit. But again, it's that point. How do you make give the impression that someone is lengthy and tedious without being lengthy and tedious? Aliki.
There's something interesting about the what's public and what's private of it as well. You know, they're all standing there listening to this big speech in, I guess, full court and going, yeah, what about this? No, don't interrupt him. Don't tell it. And that's kind of nice. And then the prince hangs back and yeah.
Yes, I did like that line, you know, check your passion, Lord Drusus tarries, you know, to remind you, there are people listening, guys. Shush, don't get too enthusiastic. Lois.
Yes, I wondered. I mean, Arruntius just says that one line, Caesar, and I don't know whether he's actually trying to call out to him to say all the things that he's been saying he wanted to say, or whether he's just commenting, Caesar, or what.
Yes, there's no real indication what to do with that line. Is it just simply bye, or grr, or what? I think it's dealer's choice. It's by the response of peace. It sounds like you're probably about to say a 4-letter word. So yeah, but yeah, all this statue stuff, and it's interesting as that sort of turnaround for Sejanus as well, because it's about reactions as well to Tiberius's speech. Tiberius's speech is not the interesting thing about that scene; it's everybody else's reactions to Tiberius's speech. Where is he going to go with it? And of course Sejanus would go, oh, get a statue, and then of course you have this turnaround and he gets striked in the face. I do wonder about the authenticity of the drawing sword stage direction. That might be something someone's over enthusiastically added to the text. But yeah, he's definitely, you know, being threatened, and there's that sense of dangerous enemy here. You don't want to make an enemy of Sejanus. Not a good move, Drusus. Not a good move. Do all your manoeuvring behind people's backs, not in front of them. Anyway, other thoughts before we move on into Act 2? There's a lot going on here, but I have to say I genuinely really liked all of that. I mean, yeah, dial some of it back a bit, but it's he's doing some really interesting things. And it's technically one scene, but it's sort of 3 or 4. You can sort of understand why, if you wanted to try and break Act 1 into scenes, it's actually quite difficult to do. But it's also sort of necessary for when you rehearse it. You'd rehearse that scene with Sejanus and his unfortunate victims entirely separately to everyone else, because it is a scene all by itself. Stephen?
I don't know where it was played, but I love the idea, if it was played indoors, that you would then literally, right in the middle of this, just have to stop for 5 minutes while the music came on and people went and bought some crisps and stuff. And then we start back in exactly the same point. I don't know where it was played. A few years later, it might be more likely to be indoors, I guess. But
yeah, it could, because you're absolutely right. We basically go from the Sejanus is on, technically in paper he exits, and then we're straight back on again. So I got a note. One version has chorus of musicians. So yeah, but there is a question of as to where it's played, what the conventions for playing it would be. It does feel like a play that needs 4 intervals. I feel I'd like to have, I'd like to go long with this, and not in a bad way. I quite like that. I think it's got political questions that I'd like to go away and discuss. Certainly after this act of going, ooh, there's something to talk about. I quite like that. Eric?
It's interesting to figure out, well, I mean, obviously this is a cold read, so it's hard to, grasp that, but the clumps of people that you would, the sort of cliques that would hang out. So you've got Arruntius, Silius or Silius or whatever his name is, and Sabinus and Cordus, and then you've got people walking past them. It's just an interesting sort of setup. You've got these commentators on the action as well as the action itself, but they're also participating in the action. So yeah, I don't know.
Yes, and how far do you differentiate the cliques in terms of costuming? I wouldn't want everyone, one faction in blue and one faction, red, because I think that would sort of diminish actually what's going on here, because it is more complicated than that. But also, it would be nice if you got, I don't know, maybe those who are against Sejanus, they all have a slightly old-fashioned haircut or something like that. They look slightly different, but they're not in an overt way. Anyway, we need to go into Act 2 and find out what happens there. As has already been stated, Sejanus basically comes straight back on again. So Act 2, Scene 1, enter Sejanus, Livia, and Eudemus.
Physician, thou art worthy of a province for the great favours done unto our loves. And but that greatest Livia bears a part in the requital of thy services, I should alone despair of aught like means to give them worthy satisfaction.
Eudemus, I will see it, shall receive a fit and full reward for his large merit. But for this potion we intend to Drusus, no more our husband now, whom shall we choose as the most apt and able instrument to minister it to him?
I say Eligdus.
Eligdus? What's he?
An eunuch Drusus loves.
Aye, and his cupbearer.
Name not a second. Drusus love him, and he have that place. We cannot think a fitter.
True, my lord, for free access and trust are two main aids.
Skillful physician.
But he must be wrought to the undertaking with some laboured art.
Is he ambitious?
No.
Covetous?
Neither.
Yet gold is a good general charm.
What is he then?
Faith only wanton, light.
Is he young and fair?
A delicate youth.
Send him to me. I'll work him. Royal lady, I have loved you long, with that height of zeal and duty, like the fire which more it mounts it trembles, thinking naught could add unto the fervour which your eye had kindled. Yet now I see your wisdom, judgment, strength, quickness, will to apprehend the means to your own good and greatness. I protest myself through rarefied and turned all flame in your affection. Such a spirit as yours was not created for the idle second to a poor flash, Drusus, to shine bright as the moon among the lesser lights and share the sovereignty of all the world. Then Livia triumphs in her proper sphere, when she and her Sejanus shall divide the name of Caesar. Augusta's star be dimmed with glory of a brighter beam, when Agrippina's fires are quite extinct, the scarce soon Tiberius borrows all his little light from us, whose folded arms shall make one perfect orb.
Knocking within.
Was that?
Exit Eudemus.
It is not Drusus, lady, do not fear.
Not I, my lord. My fear and love of him left me at once.
Illustrious lady, stay.
I'll tell his lordship.
Re-enter Eudemus.
Who is it?
One of your lordship's servants brings you word. The emperor hath sent for you.
Oh, where is he? With your fair leave, dear princess. I'll but ask a question. Return.
Exit Sejanus.
Fortunate princess, how are you blessed in the fruition of this unequaled man, the soul of Rome, the empire's life and voice of Caesar's world.
So blessed, my Eudemus, as to know the bliss I have, with what I ought to owe the means that wrought it. How do I look today?
Oh, excellent, clear, believe it. This same Fucus was well laid on.
Methinks 'tis here, not white.
Lend me your scarlet, lady. 'Tis the sun hath given some little taint unto the ceruse. You should have used the white oil I gave you. Sejanus, for your love, his very name commandeth above Cupid or his shafts.
And paints her cheeks.
Nay, now you've made it worse.
I'll help it straight and but pronounced is a sufficient charm against all rumour and of absolute power to satisfy for any lady's honour.
What do you now, Eudemus?
Make a light fucus to touch you with all honoured Sejanus. What act, though ne'er so strange and insolent, but that addition will at least bear out, if do not expiate.
Here, a good physician.
I like this study to preserve the love of such a man that comes not every hour to greet the world. 'Tis now well, lady. You should use of the dentifrice I prescribed you to clear your teeth, and the prepared pomatum to smooth the skin. A lady cannot be too curious of her form that still would hold the heart of such a person, made her captive as you have his, who to endear him more in your clear eye hath put away his wife, the trouble of his bed, and your delights, fair Apicata, and made spacious room to your new pleasures.
Have not we returned that with our hate to Drusus and discovery of all his counsels?
Yes, and wisely, lady. The ages that succeed and stand far off to gaze at your high prudence shall admire and reckon it an act without your sex. It hath that rare appearance. Some will think your fortune could not yield a deeper sound that mixed with Drusus, but when they shall hear that and the thunder of Sejanus meet, Sejanus, whose high name doth strike the stars and rings about the concave, great Sejanus, whose glories, style, and titles are himself the often iterating of Sejanus, they then will lose their thoughts and be ashamed to take acquaintance of them.
Re-enter Sejanus.
I must make a rude departure, lady. Caesar sends with all his haste both of command and prayer. Be resolute in our plot. You have my soul as certain yours as it is my body's. And, wise physician, so prepare the poison as you may lay the subtle operation upon some natural disease of his. Your eunuch sent to me. I kiss your hands, glory of ladies, and commend my love to your best faith and memory.
My lord, I shall but change your words. Farewell. Yet this remember for your heed, he loves you not. You know what I have told you. His designs are full of grudge and danger. We must use more than a common speed.
Excellent lady. Oh, you do fire my blood.
Well, you must go. The thoughts be best are least set forth to show.
Exit Sejanus.
When will you take some physic, lady?
When I shall, Eudemus. But let Drusus' drug be first prepared.
Were Ligdus made? That's done. I have it ready. And tomorrow morning I'll send you a perfume, first to resolve and procure sweat, and then prepare a bath to cleanse and clear the cutis. Against when I'll have an excellent new fucus made, restive against sun, the wind, or rain, which you shall lay on with a breath, or oil, as you like best, and last some 14 hours. Change came timely, lady, for your health and the restoring of your complexion, which Drusus' collar had almost burnt up, wherein your fortune hath prescribed you better than art could do.
Thanks, good physician. I'll use my fortune, you shall see, with reverence. Is my coach ready?
It attends your highness.
And they exit. No wonder Drusus isn't a fan of this guy. I mean, I don't know whether he knows what's going on, or he suspects, or something. But yeah, they're a team, aren't they? Aren't they? Just it's interesting. See, we've had the makeup scene as a thing before in other texts, and I can't remember off the top of my head what they were, but we've had them elsewhere, either before or after this play. And yeah, there's it does feel like it's something of a trope that's sort of being played out here. But yeah, we're getting further and further into rooms. We're sort of going, and this is a very private room, whereas we had and very public rooms, very private rooms. And the people who are in the know. I mean, I wouldn't be the person helping to commission any murders or anyway. I wouldn't want to be, because have they not read any early modern plays? I mean, it doesn't end well if you're the person who's procuring these things. Anyway, thoughts in the room before we go on to the next scene. We've got 3 more scenes to do, so very briefly, any thoughts on this? We're getting a bit more into Sejanus. Stephen.
You could take the makeup scene in 2 different ways, couldn't you? It could be kind of, excited, in the toilets of the club, sorting out your lippy sort of thing. Or it could be, sort of Christine Scott Thomas just getting all regal and having her face put on. I think it's a nice, the intimacy of it gives you some nice performance options, I think. You could reveal a bit of vulnerability, for example.
Other thoughts? Sarah?
The makeup scene it reminded me of was the Lucrezia Borgia one in the play whose title now escapes me that we did a while back.
Devil's Charter.
Devil's Charter.
Devil's Charter. And the thing that made me think about that was because in that scene she is actually poisoned. And I don't know whether this play comes before this or after.
This is before Devil's Charter.
Oh, this is before. Oh, okay. Because I was going to say it's going to make the audience, because it made me shift in my seat slightly, because I'm like, oh, okay, we've got a makeup scene and some poisonings being talking about, and I just have visions of like Livia taking the wrong bottle and just, poisoning herself. But that didn't happen. But I wasn't sure if that was intentional, but clearly not if it was beforehand.
Yeah, and it is that thing of I'm at this point I've just about shunted all my vague knowledge of Roman history into place and pushed out of the way the stuff that's fictional and put into place the stuff that is actually historically accurate. So because one always has these sort of competing versions, which part of I Claudius is actually true, and things. And of course, it's not that Livia; it's the other, and all the rest of it. So you overlapping names, Eric, and then we'll move on.
I'm trying to work out if, because Drusus in the previous scenes hasn't seemed very sort of princely, kind of. I mean, he seems like he's kind of a bit too, he can be heavy-handed, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word. Whereas, and here, Eudemus says that line about restoring your complexion, which Drusus' collar had almost burnt up, made me think that he's been beating her, but I don't know if that's just my misreading of it.
No, I think that seems a very reasonable reading. Drusus does seem to have something of a temper, but maybe that's just people provoking his privilege, and he doesn't react well to it. So maybe there's that. It's an interesting question. Are we going to encounter anyone who is wholly a likable character? I suspect everyone's going to have just a little bit of grit lying around. Is anyone going to be vaguely noble in this noble Roman age? Possibly not. We shall see. Act 2, Scene 2. Oh, look, it's Sejanus again. Enter Sejanus. Well, his title's above the door, so what do you expect?
Sorry. Lost my place.
Act 2, Scene 2.
2, Scene 2. Sorry about that. If this be not revenge, when I have done and made it perfect, let Egyptian slaves, Scythian Parthians, and barefoot Hebrews brand my face, print my body full of injuries. Thou lost thyself, child Drusus, when thou thought'st thou couldst outskip my vengeance, or outstand the power I had to crush thee into air. Thy follies now shall taste what kind of man they have provoked. This thy father's house crack in the flame of my insensate rage, whose fury shall admit no shame or mean. Adultery, it is the lightest ill I will commit. A race of wicked acts shall flow out of my anger, and o'erspread the world's wide face, which no posterity shall e'er approve, nor yet keep silent. Things that for their cunning, close and cruel mark, thy father could wish his, and shall, perhaps, carry the empty name, but we, the prize. Then, my soul, and start not in thy course, though heaven drop sulphur and hell belch out fire, laugh at the idle terrors. Tell proud Jove, between his power and thine there is no odds. 'Twas only fear first in the world made gods.
Enter Tiberius attended.
Is yet Sejanus come?
He's here, dread Caesar.
Let all depart that chamber, and the next.
Exeunt attendants.
Sit down, my comfort, where the master prince of all the world, Sejanus, saith he fears. Is it not fatal?
Yes, to those are feared.
And not to him?
Not, if he wisely turn that part of fate he holdeth first unto them.
That nature, blood, and laws of kind forbid.
Due policy and state forbid it.
No.
The rest of poor respects then let go by. To make the act just, then guilty.
Long hate pursues such acts.
Whom hatred frights, let him not dream of sovereignty.
Are rights of faith, love, piety to be trod down, forgotten and made vain?
All for a crown. The prince who shames a tyrant's name to bear, will never dare do anything but fear. All the command of sceptres doth quite perish if it begin religious thoughts to cherish. Whole empires fall swayed by these nice respects. 'Tis the license of dark deeds protects even states most hated, where no laws resist the sword, but that it acteth what it list.
Yet so. We may do all things cruelly, not safely.
Yeah, do them thoroughly.
Knows yet Sejanus whom we point at?
Aye. Or else my thought, my sense, or both do err. 'Tis Agrippina.
She and her proud race.
Proud, dangerous, Caesar, for in them apace the father's spirit shoots up. Germanicus lives in their looks, their gait, their form, that upbraid us with his close death. We not revenge the same.
The act's not known.
Not proved. Whispering fame, knowledge and proof does to the jealous give, who, than to fail, would their own thought believe. 'Tis not safe the children draw long breath that are provoked by a parent's death.
It is as dangerous to make them hence, if nothing but their birth be their offence.
Stay till they strike at Caesar, then their crime will be enough, but late and out of time for him to punish.
Do they purpose it?
You know, sir, thunder speaks not till it hit. Be not secure. None swiftlier are oppressed than they whom confidence betrays to rest. Let not your daring make your danger such. All power is to be feared where 'tis too much. The youths are of themselves hot, violent, full of great thought, and that male-spirited dame, their mother, slacks no means to put them on by large allowance, popular presentings, increase of train and state, suing for titles, but then commended with like prayers, like vows to the same gods with Caesar. Days and nights she spends in banquets and ambitious feasts for the nobility. Caius Silius, Titius Sabinus, old Arruntius, Asinius Gallus, Furnius, Regulus, and others of that discontented list are the prime guests. There, and to these, she tells whose niece she was, whose daughter, whose wife, and then must they compare her with Augusta, aye, and prefer her too, commend her form, extol her fruitfulness, which a shower falls for the memory of Germanicus. If they blow over straight with windy praise and puffing hopes of her aspiring sons, who with these hourly ticklings grow so pleased and wantonly conceited of themselves, as now, I stick not to believe there's such as these do give them out, and would be thought more than competitors, immediate heirs, whilst to their thirst of rule they win the rout, still the friend of novelty, with hope of future freedom, which on every change that greedily, though emptily expects. Tis age in all things breeds neglects, and princes that will keep old dignity must not admit two youthful heirs stand by, not their own issue, but so darkly set as shadows are in picture to give height and lustre to themselves.
We will command their rank thoughts down, and with a stricter hand than we have yet put forth. Their trains must bait, their titles feasts, and factions.
Nor your state. But how, sir, will you work?
Confine them.
No. They're too great. That too faint a blow to give them now. Would have served at first, when with the weakest touch their knot had burst, but now your care must be not to detect the smallest cord or line of your suspect. For such who know the weight of princes' fear will, when they find themselves discovered, rear their forces like seen snakes that else would lie rolled in their own circles close. Naught is more high, daring, or desperate than offenders found. Where guilt is, rage and courage both abound. The course must be to let them still swell up, riot, surfeit on blind fortune's cup. Give them more place, more dignities, more style. Call them to court, to senate. In the while, take from their strength some one or twain, or more of the main factors, will front the store, and spy some by occasion. Thus, with sleight, you shall disarm them first. They, in night of their ambition, not perceive the train till in the engine they are caught and slain.
We would not kill if we knew how to save. Yet then a throne 'tis cheaper, give a grave. Is there no way to bind them by deserts?
There are wolves who change their hair, but not their hearts. While thus your thought unto a mean is tied, you neither dare enough, nor do provide. Oh, modesty is fond, and chiefly where the subject is no less compelled to bear than praise his sovereign's acts.
We can no longer keep on our mask to thee, our dear Sejanus. Thy thoughts are ours in all, and we but proved their voice in our designs, which by assenting hath more confirmed us than if heartening Jove had from his 100 statues bid us strike, and at the stroke clicked all his marble thumbs. But who shall first be struck?
First, Caius Silius. He is the most to mark. most of danger. In power and reputation equal strong, having commanded an imperial army 7 years together, vanquished Sacrovir in Germany, and thence obtained to wear the ornaments triumphal. His steep fall, by how much it doth give the weightier crack, will send more wounding terror to the rest, command them stand aloof, give more way to our surprising of the principal.
But what Sabinus?
Well, let him grow a while, whose fate is not yet ripe. We must not pluck it all together, lest we catch ourselves. There's Arruntius too, he only talks. But Sosia, Silius's wife, would be wound in now, for she hath a fury in her breast more than hell ever knew, would be sent thither in time. Then there's there one Crucius Cordus, writing fellow. You've got to gather notes of the precedent times and make them into annals. Tart and bitter spirit, I hear, who under colour of praising those doth tax the present state, censures the men, the actions, leaves no trick nor practice unexamined, parallels the times, the governments, professed champion for the old liberty.
A perishing wretch! As if there were that chaos bred in things, that laws and liberty would not rather choose to be quite broken and ta'en hence by us, than have the stain to be preserved by such. Have we the means to make these guilty first?
Trust that to me. Let Caesar, by his power, but cause a formal meeting of the Senate. They will have matter and accusers ready.
But how? Let us consult.
We shall misspend the time of action. Councils are unfit in business, where all rest is more pernicious than rashness can be. Acts of this close kind thrive more by execution than advice. There is no lingering in that work begun, which cannot praised be until through done.
Our edicts shall forthwith command a court. While I can live, I will prevent earth's fury.
And with the same sentiment in Greek, which we don't have in this text, exit Tiberius, enter Julius Posthumus.
My lord, Sejanus.
Julius Posthumus, come with my wish. What news from Agrippinus?
Faith, none. They all lock up themselves late, or talking character. I have not seen a company so changed, except they had intelligence by augury of our practice.
And when were you there?
Last night.
And what guests found you?
Sabinus, Silius, the old list, Arruntius, Firmus, and Gallus.
Would not these talk?
Little, and yet we offered choice of argument. Satrius was with...
Well, 'tis guilt enough they are often meeting. Yet you forgot to extol the hospitable lady.
No, that trick was put well home, and had succeeded too, but that Sabinus coughed a caution out, for she began to swell.
May she burst. Julius, I would have you go instantly unto the palace of the great Augusta, and, by your kindest friend, get swift access. Acquaint her with these meetings. Tell the words you brought me the other day of Silius, and somewhat to them. Make her understand the danger of Sabinus and the times out of his closeness. Give Arruntius words of malice against Caesar. So to Gallus, and above all to Agrippina. Say as you may truly that her infinite pride, propped with the hopes of her too fruitful, with popular studies, gapes for sovereignty and threatens Caesar. Pray Augusta then that for her own, great Caesar's, and the public safety, she be pleased to urge these dangers. Caesar is too secure. Best you take it another time. What is for us to sound, to explore, to what oppose, plot, practice, or prevent, if he, whom it is so strongly laboured shall out of greatness and free spirit be supinely negligent. Our city is now divided as in time of the Civil War. Men forbear not to declare themselves of Agrippina's party. Every day the faction multiplies, will do more if not resisted. You can best enlarge it as you find audience. A noble Posthumus. Commend me to your Prisca, and pray her she will solicit this great business to earnest and most present execution with all her utmost credit with Augusta.
I shall not fail in my instructions.
And exit Julius Posthumus.
The second, his mother, will well urge our late design and spur on Caesar's rage, which might else grow. The way to put a prince in blood is to present the shapes of dangers greater than they are, like late or early shadows, and sometimes to feign where there are none. To make him fear. Fear will make him cruel. And once entered, he does not easily learn to stop, spare where he may doubt. So have I made my rule, to thrust Tiberius into tyranny, make him toil, to turn aside those blocks which I alone could not remove with safety. Drusus, once gone, Germanicus' 3 sons would clog my way, whose guards have too much faith to be corrupted, and their mother known of too unreproved a chastity to be attempted, as light Livia was. Work then out on Caesar's fears, as they on those they fear, till all my lets be clean. He ruins of his house, hate of all, bury its date. In my peace and safety, I am making him the public sacrifice.
And exit Sejanus, who definitely does a lot of talking now. It's definitely a lot of good words. We can now start making decisions. I mean, we've got to, if you're going to do this play on stage as a live show, you're going to have to cut some stuff, which is good because there's some stuff to cut. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff. And Sejanus, he's got some great dialogue. He's just got a lot of it, and there's a sense that there's a really good scene in this. There's some really nice plotting and some back and forth, but there's just a bit too much stuff. It's like you get the impression he just really enjoyed writing this, didn't he? He really enjoyed writing this stuff for Sejanus, and it just got pull it back, mate, pull it back. But that's fine. That's what blue pencils are for. We can pick and choose our favourite lines as long as the plot moves forward. He's got a lot of irons in the fire. He's got a lot of political opponents to take out, and he's going to use Caesar to work on that. Aliki.
Yeah, I mean, it's always so much fun when a villain says, I am the most villainous villain, I'm going to do some villainy, and then just goes straight out and does some bang, bang, bang.
Yes, we've seen him plotting with Livia in the previous scene. We've seen him plotting with Tiberius at the same time as they're to undermine Tiberius, and all of these other the targets that he's got. He really doesn't like. Tiberius really doesn't like some of these targets as well. So we've already met all the factions. It does help that we met the factions earlier, so we do know who they're talking about. It is actually quite nicely structured. Anyway, we've got 2 more scenes, relatively short scenes to get through, so we're going to have a quick rattle through those before we get into discussion. Act 2, Scene 3, enter Satrius and Natta.
Exceeding circumspect and wary.
They have us in the wind, yet Arruntius cannot contain himself.
But he's not yet looked after. There are others more desired that are more silent.
Comes. Away.
Exeunt Satrius and Natta. Enter Sabinus, Arruntius, and Cordus.
How is it that these beagles haunt the house of Agrippina?
No, they hunt. There is some game here lodged, which they must rouse to make the great ones sport.
Did you observe how they invade against Caesar?
Aye, baits for us to bite at. Would I have my flesh torn by the public hook? These qualified hangmen should be my company.
Here comes another.
And Domitius Afer passes over the stage.
Aye, there's a man. Afer, the orator, one that has phrases, figures, and fine flowers to strew his rhetoric with, and doth make haste to get him note or name by any offer where blood or gain be objects, steeps his words when he would kill in artificial tears. The crocodile of Tiber, him I love, that man is mine, he hath my heart and voice when I would curse, he.
Contemn the slaves, their present lives will be their future graves.
And Exeunt Act 2, Scene 4 is effectively an artificial break. Enter Silius, Agrippina, Nero, and Sosia. May it please your highness not forget yourself. I dare not, with my manners, to attempt your trouble farther.
Farewell, noble Silius.
Most royal princess.
Sosia stays with us.
She is your servant, and doth owe your grace an honest but unprofitable love.
How can that be when there's no gain but virtues?
You take the moral, not the politic sense. I meant, as she is bold and free of speech, earnest to utter what her zealous thought travails withal in honour of your house, which act, as it is simply born in her, partakes of love and honesty, but may, by the over-often and unseasoned use, turn to your loss and danger, for your state is waited on by envies as by eyes, and every second guest your tables take is a feed spy to observe who goes, who comes, what conference you have, with whom, where, when, what the discourse is, what the looks, the thoughts of every person there they do extract and make into a substance.
Hear me, Silius. Where old Tiberius' body stuck with eyes, and every wall and hanging in my house transparent as this lawn I wear, or air, yea, had Sejanus both his ears as long as to my inmost closet, I would hate to whisper any thought, or change an act, to be made Juno's rival. Virtue's forces show ever noblest in conspicuous courses.
This 'tis great and bravely spoken, like the spirit of Agrippina. Yet your highness knows there is nor loss nor shame in providence. If you can, what all should do, beware enough. You may perceive with what officious face Satrius and Natta, Afer, and the rest visit your house of late to inquire the secrets, and with what bold and privileged art they rail against Augusta, yea, and at Tiberius, tell tricks of Livia and Sejanus, all to excite and call your indignation on, that they might hear it at more liberty.
You're too suspicious, Silius.
Pray the gods I be so, Agrippina, but I fear some subtle practice. They that durst to strike at so examples and unblamed a life is as that of the renowned Germanicus will not sit down with that exploit alone. He threatens many that hath injured one.
For a bet rip forth their tongues, sear out their eyes, when next they come.
A fit reward for spies.
Enter Drusus Jr.
Hear you the rumour?
What?
Drusus is dying.
Dying?
That's strange.
You were with him yesternight.
One met Eudemus, the physician, sent for, but now who thinks he cannot live.
Thinks, if it be arrived at that, he knows or none.
'Tis quick. What should be his disease?
Poison, poison.
How, Silius?
What's that?
Nay, nothing. There was late a certain blow given of the face.
Aye, to Sejanus.
True.
And what of that?
I'm glad I gave it not.
There is somewhat else?
Yes, private meetings with a great lady, sir, at a physician's, and a wife turned away.
Huh.
Toys, mere toys, what wisdom's now in the streets, in the common mouth,
Fears, whisperings, tumults, noise, I know not what. They say the Senate sit.
I'll thither straight and see what's in the forge.
Good Silius, do. Sosia and I will in.
Haste you, my lords, I to visit the sick prince, tender your loves and sorrows to the people. This Sejanus, trust my divining soul, hath plots on all. No tree that stops his prospect, but must fall. Exeunt. Oh, that picked up a bit of pace. They haven't hung around. I mean, they're only plotting his murder a couple of scenes ago, and no, he's not very well. I have to say I'm reading him, but Salia's some little thing of just saying it as it is. Look. Have you not noticed that there's a lot of people keep coming around and keep sort of prompting you to say stuff? You might want to be a bit careful. You've not been in politics long, have you? I mean, for goodness sake, have you not met your relations? What do you think is going on here? How have you lived this long if you are this politically naive? But then he's quite indiscreet himself, just going, he was poisoned. This is what they do. Have you not met the family?
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying Silius the political prophet here. Yeah, it's great.
Yes, I'm glad. I love that line about a certain blow. I'm glad I gave it not.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Don't hit Sejanus. It does not end well.
Yeah.
Especially when he's having it off with your wife. So yeah, it's really interesting actually, because we have that's quite a pithy couple of, again, I feel that there's a balancing act going on here with these long scenes with quite long speeches going on, but then we have these quite movement orientated scenes where people are sort of flowing around and entering and exiting, and it feels like there's a sort of payoff being arranged here, so that you can have these more internal scenes with just two people. The emperor left alone with sending the servants away. So that they can talk in private, because Tiberius is not an idiot. I mean, the text hasn't really given us much evidence as to his intelligence, but he clearly isn't that much of an idiot. So yeah, we'd say we've got all these characters, and of course they've been talking about these characters, so then they come on, and that again is sort of keeping the politics from that first scene, which initially was sort of going, I'm going with it, but I'm not quite sure who everyone is. I now feel on very firm ground as to who everyone is, which is good because there's a few more people to come. It's going to get busier. We may not have quite enough people to read all of them next time. So yeah, thoughts in the room on these sort of late flourishing scenes in Act 2. Are you still with it? Are you confused as to who anyone is? Got Drusus, we've got Drusus Junior. We have established who the Junior is. It's the Drusus Junior, who's yeah. Other thoughts? Have thoughts. Please have thoughts. I keep making thoughts. I'm waiting for some resupplies. So
Well, you keep saying what we would have said, so then it's not.
I can't be having all the thoughts. Sarah.
I don't really have any thoughts, but she says, desperately vamping. But I think the reason I don't have any thoughts is because it's just all there. It's just all laid out for us. It's really clear. The characterization's really good. We know what's happening. We know who's doing it and why. And so I'm not really having a lot of thoughts, honestly. I'm just kind of enjoying the ride.
Is Sejanus too moustache twirly? I mean, just a thought here, because he's the only one who really turns to the audience, and I did almost type in the chat at one point, and I don't know if that's Stephen just going for it, or whether it's fully text driven or not, Stephen.
Well, yeah, I'll probably be carrying spears for the rest of the reading, so there is an element of that. Yeah, but I mean, you really need a director's hand, I think, because I'm quite limited, and once I've done kind of Nasty Menace, my bolt is kind of shot, and you have sort of 50 lines of Nasty Menace. It's really difficult to put light and shading and character in there, partly because the lure of the complicity with the camera or with the audience is so great, because it's such a big hit to kind of turn away from the action and just kind of address people. And I do like that kind of one. I like thinking about the ways in which he's basically he's looking for complicity, isn't he? He's looking for people to kind of sort of cathect and connect to this character. But you really need somebody to go, okay, you've actually just been menacing for 10 lines. And maybe we're all falling asleep by now. You're very good at menacing, love. I'm not saying you menace. I love your menace. I love your menace. But could we have just a little bit more fucus on it, darling? Just for those at the back who are a bit slow. I know it's a bore, isn't it?
Yes, because I mean, it is that scene with Tiberius, because of course Tiberius is doing a lot of plotting as well. I mean, Tiberius, who we're introduced as this god who everyone's supplicating to, and he's trying to be terribly noble, and making all the wrong decisions, as far as some people are concerned. But here, it's no. Let's get rid of Agrippina. She's really annoying. We've never got on, and their faction as well. Yeah, I'm all for that. That's good plan, Sejanus. I don't think he's being pushed heavily by Sejanus's plotting here. Maybe Sejanus has just read the room a bit. Sarah, and then Lois.
I think he's way more emotionally intelligent than a lot of other people in this play. It's just that he's not. He's kind of pathological with it, so it's like kind of he's very good at reading the room, but he's using it for nefarious purposes. One thing that occurs to me is that setup in the first scene, where everyone's like, oh well, he's not really one of us. I think that's something that you could lean into quite heavily, and then through directing choices and acting choices, like echo through the other scenes as we go through, because I think if you set up the audience at the very beginning, before he's even appeared, to kind of be rooting for Sejanus just because he's not one of these aristocratic pompous asses, then you've sort of somebody mentioned House of Cards earlier, and not the original, which is kind of brilliant, but the later remake, which sort of isn't. But one thing it does do is that it makes the central nefarious character, Frank, it makes him into an outsider. Like, he's not part of this political machine, which is mainly peopled with very entitled politicians who have kind of not earned their place, who have not, who have kind of inherited their wealth and their fortune and their connections and blah, blah, blah. And I think, there's a similar thing going on here. We've not really stressed it, but I think if you did stress it in a production and you kept getting this contrast, you kept being reminded of the contrast between the fact that these are all very much people who have, and he is a person who has in the past had not, and he's wormed his way up. That would be a way of actually keeping the audience on side. And the fact that he isn't maybe so three-dimensional as a bad guy then doesn't really matter so much, because it's like, how is he going to do this? What is he going to do next? The fact that he can read the room and he's clever and these people, how is he going to use that? We know he's going to use it. That fact has been established very clearly, but it's more a question of how.
Yeah, I mean, I was sort of drifting back into getting a real Thomas Cromwell vibe, more the Hilary Mantel than the play we've looked at, but that sort of that sense of he's worked his way into this position. He's probably killed a lot of people to get here, but through straightforward political thuggery, and he's got to be how much of a bruiser is Sejanus? Who is Sejanus? Discuss. Lois, then Stephen.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think what Sarah said earlier about how, it's all sort of up front is true. I mean, it's one of the problems. I think you were sort of suggesting that one might play, or I guess Stephen was suggesting one might play Livia in that earlier scene as a bit more vulnerable, a bit more scared of losing her attraction to this great man. And I suppose it's possible. I mean, it seemed to me that on the whole, Jonson's writing her a straightforward bitch. And then Agrippina comes on and says, I believe in being totally honest about everything. And as far as I can make out, that is what she means, that she, even though she, historically, this is rather startling. I mean, from what one knows about her elsewhere. But anyway, that seems to be what she's doing in this play. I think the only character who perhaps isn't absolutely straightforward is Tiberius, because I think even when he's agreeing with Sejanus, he's also thinking about what he might have to do with Sejanus eventually. There's more scope for subtlety there, maybe. But I think that's one of the problems of the play, that there's not much you can do with subtext or, suggesting interesting psychology in the characters. One thing about the production that I saw back in 2005, which I remember well, is you remember that bit where they're talking about the cupbearer to Drusus and how to use him and what he's like. And then Sejanus says, send him to me. Well, they interpolated a scene which is not in the play, which is basically Sejanus raping this kid, who is indeed, young and good looking. And that sort of explains everything. He's now kind of implicated and is going to have to poison Drusus.
Yes, there's the production with some onstage buggery for effect. Yeah, that's pretty much what every review I read of it sort of pretty much focused on, as I recall. Stephen.
Just to sort of Sarah's point about emotional intelligence, one of the things I noticed about Sejanus is he's really great with cues. He does these great dramatic. He's got two great dramatic things with cues. One is to stop all this yes and bollocks and just go no, and just derail the direction of the conversation. And the other is a kind of romantic comedy thing where he finishes off an iambic line, or he finishes off a couplet, so that somebody is suggesting something and he'll just come in with like 3 or 4 word pithy contradiction or change of direction. He's really, really good with other people's cues. He does really interesting things with them, and that's part of the several laps ahead of everybody else at this point in the play. I mean, I imagine what's going to happen is that it kind of falls away from him, and he's still doing the same old tricks, and they stop working for some reason. But I think it hadn't really occurred to me. So I mean, Sarah's point about that actually being emotional intelligence, I think. There's a specific little theatrical technique that Jonson's craftsmanship is giving us.
Because there's a lot of shared lines and things and interruptions to sort of take Stephen's point on there, where people are breaking in or get halfway through saying something and then something else happens, which is very broken uppy in ways that we usually see for boys' companies. The sort of complexity. Though of course this is also mixed with people making very, very long speeches, which is much more straightforward for your playhouse actors to deal with, in terms of go away and learn this long speech. Thank you very much. Lois, then we go to final thoughts.
Well, maybe I should save this for final thoughts, because I don't know if I have any final thoughts, but I mean, a lot of that also comes in the shared lines and the sort of few words capping off a line comes in those rhymed bits. And it's kind of interesting the way he suddenly goes into rhyme. A lot of it is in the bits that are straight out of Seneca. I think you've read the Seneca tragedies, haven't you? So, I mean, it's that particular bit of dialogue. It also comes up in Marston. I think it's Antonio's Revenge. There's something more or less straight, pretty much the same scene, somebody talking to his advisor and discussing whether it's better for a prince to be loved or feared, and how the great advantage of being a ruler is you get everybody groveling before you, and you can get away with murder and so on.
Getting away with murder. Well, again, welcome to the family. Final thoughts, Eric. How are you finding the play so far? Thoughts about it and stuff.
I'm enjoying it, which I didn't expect. It's like shit long speeches, but then I say that because I haven't had any of the really long ones, unlike Sarah. But Yeah, I'm enjoying the language as well, where you've got like sort of these moments of sort of, I don't know, Sejanus going, "Oh, how you fire my blood," or "You set us fire in my blood," or whatever that line was. And it feels very sort of precise. Like you can't really change a word or two unless, maybe you change the order by accident or something like I did earlier. But I mean, I misread it. But it's very sort of accurate, and I don't know. He's intriguing me as a writer as well as as a playwright as well as a sort of as a performer.
Stephen, any final thoughts?
Yeah, well, I've kind of said most of it, I suppose. Just two. The first one is prompted by what Lois has just said, which is layered in there as well. I think we have some Machiavelli, who is a historian of Rome, amongst other things, isn't he? So that some of this stuff about men creating gods and so forth, I think would have sort of double, maybe more than double valences. That what we're seeing is that Mac evil, as it were, sort of, and that gives us, ironically, of course, that then gives us the question: what about the present court is this doing then? So we have this sort of whole thing about Cordus, isn't it? Going Sejanus saying, well, what he does is he parallels the times, doesn't he? And he says he's writing about then, but he's actually writing about now. And so that Machiavelli thing, I think, is a little kind of contemporary top spin on that, perhaps. And the other thing was, I was just thinking about status, and I think if you were kind of directing it, if you're putting it on, I think Tiberius has got to be a 10. I mean, it's fairly obvious Sejanus is a 10, but it needs some balance. You can dial Sejanus down, but I think the more you have Tiberius as a kind of worthy adversary, then the more easy it is to judge Sejanus, because he's not taking down some kind of idiot. He's taking down this talented politician ruler who is trying to keep 18 balls in the air, only one of which is Sejanus and factionalism, and that kind of scene between the two of them, I think that's the real key of the whole thing so far for me. If you that needs to be in somehow in balance. The two characters need to be in balance, and then that gives us a greater complexity if we have complicity with Janus too. That's my two thoughts.
Well, I like these thoughts. Alan, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether this was actually written as a star vehicle, if there was a lead actor for whom the Sejanus role was written, because he's had the lion's share of the juicier speeches, with Tiberius running a relatively close second. Trouble I always have with Jonson is he does strike me as being a bit of a Phil Spector. It's sort of the wall of words. Not that there's much you can actually excise without losing a lot of the spirit, but there's an awful lot of verbiage, which does become quite difficult. And I think without distinguishing marks of costume or whatever, it does become quite difficult to focus on it.
Well, I don't know. I didn't find that. I thought I was going to find that was going to be a problem. I mean, certainly we're going to, in a stage production, you're going to cut a lot of words. Certainly, some of these longer speeches need to be taken back. But it's not like it is just long speeches. We've got a lot of little backs and forths and little flows. I mean, as I say, that was sort of the fear, and I think that's the fear that anyone who picks up the play gets the moment they look at the text and go. But actually, in practice, apart from. I did find the Sejanus Tiberius scene actually quite heavy going. There's not like it's not quite hitting its potential. I think you can see the potential in it. Whereas that earlier scene, when it's there, where there is that status difference between Sejanus and this poor doctor who's utterly outmatched. Whereas when you've got two people on it, I think that's something that will come out with work, but it's not necessarily bang out there straight off. Sarah, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I disagree with you about that scene. It was my favorite scene actually, and not just because I was reading it. That to me is the bit of the play that I'm most intrigued by. I'm sort of picking up on what Stephen was saying here, but it's their relationship. Everything is kind of laid out on a plate. Mostly, but the thing I found really interesting in that scene was that speech when Tiberius said, "We can no longer keep on our mask to thee, our dear Sejanus, thy thoughts are ours." And I'm like, oh, that's interesting, because he's not just some sort of bumbling, Stephen was saying this, he's not just some bumbling, slightly inept emperor. He's got a lot of balls in the air, and this is one of them. And it's almost, I just felt that there was a bit of a shift in that scene, and it's almost as though I suddenly realized why Tiberius keeps this guy around. It's because he's the one who gives him license to do all this stuff, to do all this cruel stuff, to be, the strategic Machiavellian, pushing him to be more cruel and to behave with less mercy. It's like Tiberius has got this image of himself as this lovely person, this humble emperor, who doesn't want to think of himself as a god. No, don't put up statues to me. I'm just a man. Just, if when I die, you remember me fondly, that's all I need. And this is his public persona, but it's also probably the persona that he wants to have for himself. He's heavily invested in thinking of himself in that way. And then he's got this sidekick who makes no bones about saying, no, you don't be nice to them. Just kill them. Just hit them before they can hit you. And it's like, oh, he's the, oh no, I don't think we should do that. Really, should we do that? Okay, yeah, let's do that. I just think that's a really entertaining relationship. And given that this play is called Sejanus His Fall, I'm guessing that is probably what's going to instigate his fall. The fact that Tiberius is going to go, yeah, you know what, actually, nah, I don't need you to be the devil on my shoulder. I'm quite capable of being the devil myself. But I don't know. And that's the thing that's intriguing me. That's the one little bit that is actually really intriguing me. And I'm very interested to see how those two characters develop. So, I mean, yeah, because I think in spite of, he has had a lot of words, but I think there is still room for Sejanus to develop, just because, how is he going to meet his downfall? At the moment, he seems fairly invincible. So, yeah, how is he going to fall, and who's going to be the catalyst? That bit is quite intriguing.
Aliki, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm really enjoying this, and I also haven't really felt it as a wall of words, or to the extent that I have. I think it's an artifact of this being our first exploration of it. I think if we were to really delve into it and pick apart the motivations and the specifics, we wouldn't find those speeches that long. And yeah, I'm having a good time. I'm looking forward to the rest.
Because I have to say, in my mind, I'm thinking that this would actually work very nicely as an episodic audio drama to a degree, in the sense and uncut. Actually, in that format, I don't think we need to worry about cutting. What we need to worry about is clarity of who the factions are, which is an issue. But those smaller scenes are actually very straightforward. Whereas the big problem I said before we went on online was not necessarily so much how you cut the play down, because actually how you cut the play down is relatively straightforward for a theatre. The problem is actually assembling a large enough cast. How do you clarify some of those roles? How do you double some of those roles? Because it's a play that sort of demands there to be a lot of bodies about. Bodies are quite expensive, so on that level, it's an interesting question. I think it is one where you sort of go large or you go home, as I often say with Jonson. But yes, but can still be more manageable, and certainly individual scenes. I mean, some of those individual little exchanges are really nice. I'm really enjoying those. Excellent. Right. Any other thoughts to throw in before I close the session? No. Well, we have 2 more sessions on Sejanus. We're going to go into Acts 3 and 4 next time. All that remains, thank all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye. Gold is a good general charm.